everyone, welcome to Wokena. My name is Hawa Bari, and for today's episode, we're joined by Chris Aitchison. Hi, Chris.
Hawa, how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Excellent.
Chris, thank you so much for accepting to be part of this. This is our very first episode, and we're very proud to have you as our first guest. Chris, just to set the context, can you quickly introduce yourself, your name, your job title, where are you from originally, and also how long you've worked on a Simandou project?
I'll give that a go. So, bonjour, Madame Barry. Je m'appelle Chris Aitchison. Je suis Director General SimFer. So I'll do the translation because that may not have come across very well. So
that was good, by the way.
So Chris Aitchison, thank you very much for the introduction, and the Managing Director of SimFer, leading both the execution and the early operations for SimFer as we build the Simandou Project. I'm Australian by birth, but have lived, I guess, internationally in delivering projects associated with the projects I'm delivering for the last 10 years between here and other countries.
And to understand better what you're doing here for the Simandou Project, can you just give us an overview of what your role entails?
Yeah. So a difficult one to explain. And again, there's a family joke we have. So I have two daughters, 20, 25 and 22. And they quite often ask, Dad, what is it you actually do? We have trouble describing your role to our friends at school. And I can't help them with that, unfortunately. I get them to guess and they give me responses and it's never really quite right. I guess I can easily describe my role as I have the best and easiest job on this project. And the reason why I say that is I have the benefit of travelling across the project. I see everything on the project, everything we do. I'm humbled by being part of the team that's delivering Simandou, but I'm even more humbled by visually seeing the way in which they're doing it and executing the work. And to be able to go into the field, I'll give you an example. So recently we had a meeting with the Prime Minister of Guinea. It was a fantastic meeting. Literally hours after that meeting, I'm on an aeroplane and I'm heading down to site. I'm then in my high-vis, PPE uniform, and I'm heading out in the field. I'm inside the tunnel, the rail works, and I'm seeing the work. And so very few people get the opportunity to do that. We as a company don't build nations. People often talk about this as a nation-building project. We in ourselves don't build nations. Government build nations. The people, the populace build nations. We contribute to the growth. And we contribute through the growth by capability uplift, awarding and supporting, local content. And helping, obviously, to execute the project in a safe and on-time manner. So to be able to be part of a team that's doing that, to have the privilege of leading the team is exceptional. But to be part of the team, which is more important, delivering that is just an incredible human emotion, right? To be part of something bigger than you. And I would never have dreamed I would have been into this position. Would never have dreamed that I would go from a meeting with a preeminent figure in government down to having a conversation with one of our contractors in an underground tunnel. Building a tunnel in a space of a day or so, and I guess and not many people have the opportunity to do that. Not many people have the opportunity to witness capability uplift, to see people who have never done something before suddenly completing a role and doing very well, and seeing someone who comes along in the organisation, you see them move through various roles and ultimately become a future leader. It's an incredible thing that I have the privilege to be able to do and to be part of. And so defining what I do is incredibly difficult. It's more leadership focused. And there's an analogy that I've heard before being used around a conductor in the orchestra. And I think it probably describes it pretty well, where I have an orchestra that's filled of people that know exactly what they're doing. They know how to execute a project. They're the project directors. They know how to lead HSC. They know how to do community engagement. They are the experts in their field. My role is to conduct the orchestra, to make sure that all of the instruments, so all of the functions are working together to produce an output, and to output something which matches the vision, matches the scope of what we're trying to achieve here. But outside of that, it's just an awesome job. and I just get to celebrate everyone's successes.
Can you just explain a little bit about each operation, just so our audience can understand the complexities and the scale of the project?
Yeah. I'm not sure if I can write on the whiteboard behind us, but it is pretty. It's very simple. It's complex, but it's simple.
Okay.
And I guess if you break it down into the three elements, as you said, the three piers. So you have the mining pillar. And the mining pillar, there's 4 mining blocks. There's blocks 1, 2, 3 and 4. SimFer has the rights over mining blocks 3 and 4, and WCS and Baowu, our industrial partners, have the rights over blocks 1 and 2.
Okay.
Both mines have spur lines, which are rail spur lines, which carry the ore from the mining blocks, which then carry the ore from the mining blocks onto the main rail line, which travels across the country. Our rail spur is around 78 kilometres long, so SimFer's rail spur is 78 kilometres. WCS Baowu's rail line's around 12 kilometres. Then you have an overland rail line, which takes the ore from the forest region in Guinea all the way to the port of Murabaya. And then you have the port structure. And the port, essentially, as a combined infrastructure, has the capacity to move 120 million tonnes per annum.
Wow.
And the port will be broken into 2 halves in development. The first half of development is under the execution of WCS and Baowu, and the second half, so the first 60 million tonnes is WCS and Baowu. The second 60 million tonne capacity is being built by SimFer. Now, that's the major infrastructure components, so the mine, the rail, and then the port. Within that, all of the infrastructure, so the rail, including our rail spur, the overland rail line and the port structures, once finished construction, will be handed over to the entity CTG.
Okay.
And CTG is a company of which all industrial partners contribute to equally, in addition to the government of Guinea, and will be the operating entity which will operate the rail and the port. So all the vessel movements, all the barge, all that stuff will be operated by CTG. The rail network will be managed by CTG. The mining blocks 3 and 4 will be operated by SimFer, and the mining blocks of 1 and 2 after construction will be managed by Baowu and WCS.
Interesting. It is complex, but like you said, you made it simple. I think it's the way you explain it. It's kind of accessible.
I'm not sure I explained it very simply.
I'm pretty sure you did. I understood everything, and I'm pretty
Good.
sure our viewers would understand it. And can you just, obviously we're going to meet with our health and safety general manager, but can you explain a little bit more about the measure you oversee and the culture around health and safety? I know you mentioned it a little bit, but
so I think so the 2 million man hours is a great achievement. So that the 2 million man hours was a collective view across all of the projects. So it takes into account everyone's activities. But within that, we've also had contractors like our CR18 contractor who's operating on the rail spur achieve 5 million man hours LTI free. It's an incredible achievement. And I think where we started from to where we are now, we are in a rapidly maturing state in regards to our processes and systems. There is no doubt that when you start any engagement like this, you're starting from what I'll call a safety maturity basis, which is incredibly low.
Okay.
And that's just because people are unfamiliar with expectations, people are unfamiliar with the work. And so there's a lot of effort required to make sure that you're starting to build the foundations of a safe work culture within the work that you do. And that gets challenged from all sorts of priorities come in at the start of a project, but that's one of the main priorities that we need to build around. So having the leaders in the field, understanding, having the toolkit, having the systems, processes, all those things that need to support a safe work culture take time to develop. And particularly in this environment where you can't just grab things off the shelf. You can't just grab things from the larger Rio Tinto and say, just go and do this, and this will create a safe work environment. It doesn't work that way.
Gotta adapt.
You need to adapt, but you need to have leaders that translate the words into actions in the field. Then you also have to have a workforce that sort of has a basic understanding of identification of hazards, safe work practices. And this is one of the areas, again, going back to your previous question about pride, is I look at this work that the team are doing, particularly the training team, the HSC team, HR team, on how do we engage differently in an environment that we've not engaged with before.
Okay.
The 5 to 6 language groups, just the tribal language groups, the local language groups, not even taking into consideration the 31 nationalities that we have engaged, some of which don't have a consistency in language, so there's variations there, and variations of previous experiences all have to be melded. So coming up with a toolkit to how do you engage someone in a safe work conversation that has never worked in that environment before, isn't able to read the document that we put in front of them or write a response to an answer on this is how I'll keep myself safe. So the work of that team to understand how do we better engage, I think is fantastic. I've already said it's world leading, and that's the stuff that starts to build the maturity of our teams. So the 2 million man hours across the whole project, the 5 million man hours for a particular contractor are symbols of successes. But there's so much work that needs to be done at a foundational level just to enable us to have a safe work day.
Totally.
And so that effort will continue. I think we're starting from a very immature base, and we're building, and we've got a long way to go.
And it's wonderful because so many different people understanding, like you said, in different ways, that doesn't make them necessarily not in the position to learn, but just in a different way. And the fact that the teams are taking the time to adapt the message just so everyone can be in the same level in terms of health and safety culture. So that's really commendable. So Chris, I would like to get more in depth on the construction, the project itself, and also how Rio Tinto contribute to it. Because over the past year, there have been huge construction development.
Yes.
I want to ask you, what is the major achievement that you're the most proud of, and why?
Yeah, that's similar to one of the first questions. That's a really difficult one. You're almost asking me which one of my children's my favourite. So when you look
I love the comparison.
so when you look at what's your most favourite thing, or what's the most important thing that's been delivered over the last year, it's incredibly difficult to answer.
I'm pretty sure.
Because when you think about construction, so everyone gets excited about construction. Everyone gets excited about what they see coming out of the ground. So I could say that one thing that really excites me is the bridge construction over the Milo River, and you can see the first bridge pier being constructed. So it's around 5 to 6 levels high. It's prominent. You can see it. It's fantastic. You can talk about the clearance of the rail spur. You can talk about the mine and the haul road activity that we're now seeing within that mining area. But all of those things can only be produced by all of the efforts of the team leading up to that point. So all the way from the negotiation team that's negotiating the outcomes and forming the agreements that we're working under, sort of they provide the foundations and the umbrella to the way in which we're going to work, to the teams that have to do the design, to the team that has to secure the permits, that has to engage with the community to secure the land and support the community, to the team that has to onboard and induct. We've got inductions that happen in China, for instance, in Beijing. We've got people that are working in multiple countries globally doing design or fabrication. All of that has to come together to enable that pier to be built across the Milo River. And so when we talk about construction achievement, we can't just talk about the construction achievement. We have to talk about everything else that happens before then.
What are you, I know that's another difficult question, but what are you the most excited for the remaining months of the year for Simandou?
Yeah, so look, the end of this year provides the first opportunity to give feedback against some milestones that have been established with the government. So within the framework agreements that we've pulled together amongst the industrial partners and the government of Guinea, we've committed to interim milestones to be achieved on the infrastructure in particular by the end of 2024. As we get to the end, this is the first opportunity we have to measure ourselves against that. We obviously track progress on a monthly basis, weekly basis, daily basis. So I'm not talking about not knowing where we are against those milestones, but it's the first time there will be a public declaration with respect to this is where all industrial partners are at. And that excites me because I think we're very well placed. We're in a fantastic position to be able to achieve those milestones. So what does that look like? So that'll mean that by the end of this year, we would have finished the rail tunnel, for instance. We would have completed a large majority of our earthworks on the rail spur. We would have completed things like piling. We would have well advanced our works on the car dumper construction at our port facility. So it's going to mean that there's a lot of stuff that people can point to and say that's real progress. And I guess to this point, and given our history, we should always acknowledge our history on this project. We sort of stopped and start. This is a real demonstration of progress that will be acknowledged by all parties to say this is real progress, it's tangible, and there's no going backwards. I would argue we've been in that state for the last year, but it'll be the first opportunity at the end of this year for all partners, all stakeholders to be on that same page. So I think that's fantastic. So I'm really excited about that. The other thing that excites me is, I guess, from from a spend profile. So on a project in execution, you're seeing stuff being built and manifesting in front of your eyes. But that comes from, the amount of money that you're spending to build that infrastructure. By the end of this year, SimFer as an organisation, we would have completed around $2.2 billion worth of work this year alone.
Wow, okay.
That in itself is probably twice as large as any other undertaking Rio Tinto's ever done.
Incredible.
From a project execution perspective. So to get to the end of this year with such a significant amount of progress, it's just going to be fascinating and it's going to be amazing to be part of the pace, the energy, the support that's required all the way through this year to make all those things possible.
No, it is exciting. And even when you're talking about it, it's kind of reassuring, I'd say, because you know what you're doing, the teams know what they're doing, and like you said, we've achieved so many milestones so far. It's only right to continue on that path.
Yeah.
Just to conclude this part of the interview, if you could have one wish, just one, what would it be?
Yeah, I can't contain myself to one, but I mean, clearly there's a singular wish here that we execute the project fatality free and not having adverse impacts on community and the environment. I think if we can get through project execution and tick the boxes on those three elements, I think we've done an outstanding job. There'll always be schedule pressure, there'll always be cost pressures, but all of those mean nothing if we have a fatality or we create an adverse impact to a community or the environment. And so those things have to be paramount in people's minds.
Before I let you go, Chris, we do have a pretty popular content stream amongst our followers that's called #InstantSimandou, where we highlight the numbers and facts on the Simandou Project. So if you're up for it, I'd like to ask you some questions and just see if you can guess the numbers.
Go for it.
All right, so the first question
What happens if I don't get them right?
We're just going to be happy.
I'm in trouble, right? All right, go for it.
First question. How many hours of training have we invested in our workforce?
I think it's 54,000.
Did you have access to this? It's exactly 54,000 hours. Second question, how many people have we trained since 2022?
Yeah, see, that's going to be that's a tougher answer.
Okay.
And so it would be well over 10,000.
Yeah.
But to give some reference, and again, the scale for people to get their mind around, as we continue to advance the project, we would have impacted and trained tens of thousands of people by the end of this project.
Yeah.
The number will very quickly get to 50,000 people that in some way, shape or form would have been impacted whether they come on the project for a couple of weeks to a couple of years. They'll all get a sense of the project. They'll all get touched by the project. And so that number will increase rapidly.
But I think it's a pretty good number so far, 10,000. Last question. You mentioned it. Our workforce is 6,000 individual. Can you tell me, in terms of percentage, how many of them are Guinean?
Yeah, it continues to grow, but 85% would be the number that I'd use.
And I'm very proud of that number.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Chris, for your time. And I wish you a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Hala. It's been a pleasure.